Hey students, this is Mr. Sharp here for the second video in Unit 4 for design in our course of Technology, Engineering, and Design. Today we're going to be talking about the engineering design process and how that's going to accumulate for all the units that we'll be moving into for the rest of this course and in our future courses that you may take in this at South Garner High School. So, the engineering design process. We really have to look at this and compare it to another method that you may have seen earlier when you've taken middle school or even elementary school science, the scientific method. You guys may recall from the scientific method that this is a method of scientific approach to how nature or certain principles in physics work and how they can create theories behind it. So in the scientific method, there's observation, formulating a hypothesis, creating an experiment, make sure we find the results of that experiment, and find a conclusion. And that's really to create theories or understandings of science and what's happening. For engineers, this is a little bit different. Although we do value scientific principles and we take those into account and we understand how critical gathering data is through mathematical formulas, we are more concerned about creating products and creating new devices that help harness these scientific factors and create, in the end result, solutions to problems that humans face throughout the entire world. This can be something as historical as engineering in the ancient days to figure out best farming practices, or for the military, hiring engineers to create bridges and towers to siege cities, or even today, how engineers are trying to evolve and innovate to make renewable energy more efficient, or creating more efficient cars and creating new models for your cell phone. This is all done through this new process called the engineering design process. We're going to talk about that today in this. There are 12 steps in this course. However, when you go to another school or to another university, there's going to be probably a 7-step process, a 6-step process, but they all have something in common. There is a general census of what is the beginning point, what are the steps to move forward, and what is the end result of that engineering design process. So, looking into it, we have to look at this. Ultimately, as engineers, we are creating tangible products and prototypes from what we design that will show how this product and device will benefit humanity or benefit the environment. So we have to keep those into consideration as we go through the process. And this is where it really begins in that starting point. How do we create the idea behind it all? So the first step is always to define a problem. There's always going to be issues that cause us to think about what is something that I can do to solve this problem, whether if it's from pollution in the water system in a local area, in the local pond, or maybe in your backyard, you're trying to move a heavy rock out of the ground that you can't pick up by yourself. There's a problem that we have to face and think of ways to solve that using engineering. The second step, and really this can culminate into other steps, is how do we brainstorm different ideas about how to solve or tackle that problem. We generate ideas to formulate how this can be done and how this can be solved. But once we generate those ideas and we brainstorm, primarily with other engineers and other people, we have to go into and actually research how these ideas can be put into effect. So generating these ideas from research allows us to refine how our brainstorming sessions can be refined into further ideas and criteria we must meet, which brings us to the next step. What is the criteria of our design? What certain requirements do we have to meet? And what are some constraints, or what are things that we cannot do? What are some materials we can't use? What are some time restrictions we have? What are some even personnel or machines that we can't use to make this product work? These are factors we have to consider called criteria and constraint. We'll be talking about that one in the next video. And then finally, we create other ways. We create alternate solutions that may possibly work. We create all these different alternate ideas and solutions, and we put them together so that way we can analyze and using tangible research and data find out which approach is better, which idea will be better suited considering our criteria and our constraints, and considering the time that we have. Once we've completed all these first 7 steps, then we're ready to move on into the phases where it actually applies to design and building it. First off, we had to write up that proposal. This may not be written into a lot of other engineering design process models. We do it here so that way you guys can understand. Before you actually design something, you have to create a proposal that can be presented to whoever wants to fund the project or whoever wants to take up your product so it can be mass produced. You have to make sure that it solves that problem that you defined in the very first step. Once you write up the proposal, then you start to make the design. You will design the prototype, you will build and create the prototype, you're going to test the prototype to see if it meets the results that you want. If it meets certain criteria, you know those are specific functions that you're going to keep in your design. If it doesn't, you have to go back, refine and recreate those subsystems so that way it can make the desired outcome that you want. And then finally, we communicate the results. Communicating the results means that we show the input that we put into our process, to the product's process, creates this output to be a more efficient system. And that's essentially the engineering design process in 12 steps. I'm going to put it right here for this video so that way you guys can see it. And in the next video, we're going to dive deeper into these different criteria and constraints of the engineering design process. And I hope to see you guys there. Thank you all.